So in your next project, you're going to use absolute coordinates, and it's something that you may not be familiar with, or at least you don't think you are, but I'm going to show you that you actually have used this before and probably in areas that you hadn't thought of. So an absolute coordinate is an x and a y value that you can find on an xy grid. An xy grid, by the way, is also called a Cartesian plane. Where the x and the y intersect each other, that's called the origin, and that's where 0x and 0y meet. So that's all great and wonderful, but why should you care at all about that? Well, anybody recognize this game? This is an old game from, I don't know, the 70s or 80s, and they even made a movie out of it recently, but this is Battleship, and the goal of Battleship is to try to find where your opponent's battleships are. You don't see them, they are playing on another board. And the way you do that is you call out a series of letters and numbers. So if you were calling out D4 in this case, you can see the red splotch on the screen. That means you hit your opponent's battleship. That those other places are other areas where you missed. And if you were to put a grid over this, you would realize that this is just another type of Cartesian plane, and D4 is just an absolute coordinate. If you use GPS or do any geocaching or use any mapping software like Google Maps, an absolute coordinate is an address that you would put in, and nothing else is at that address but this one location, and you'd type it in, and the map would help you find it, partially because of latitude and longitude is just another way of having a coordinate plane, and home address is an absolute coordinate. Come visit me at Mountain Valley High School, 799 Hancock Street, Rumford, Maine. And if you play Minecraft, you may already know this, but Minecraft does use X, Y, and Z to locate things inside of Minecraft. And this is a screenshot from my Minecraft world. And as you can see, I am standing on 203X, 75Y, and 338Z. And this is particularly helpful if you get lost in Minecraft, like I often do, to get you back to where you want to go. Alright, so to review, an absolute coordinate is a specific value on an x and y axis, a Cartesian grid. And so here, in this example, this red dot is at 5x and 5y, and so that can be written as 5, 5. So up next, you will use those 5 and 5, or those absolute coordinates, to draw a block letter M and a V for Mountain Valley High School. Good luck. Let's get started drawing the MV, which is your first assessment. So you're going to open up AutoCAD, and don't forget that if you get this screen that says what do you do here, you create, and you can use the acad.dwt template. Click open. And just to get started, I want to make sure that some of the settings in the status bar are what we think they are. So down here on the bottom right is the status bar again. We're going to go ahead and remember that blue squares mean that something is active, and gray squares mean that it's inactive at the time. So you turn them on and off. The grid will stay on, so the grid display stays on down here. And I'm going to take a look at these other settings really quickly. For right now, for the first part of this project, we don't need this object snap on, so we're going to turn that off, make it gray. Okay. The important one to turn off at this particular time is this dynamic input one. Looks a little bit like a plus sign with a battery beside it to me. I don't know. So let's make those two things gray. Everything else can remain exactly the same. All right, and we're going to start our project off by drawing with lines. So we have to be in the drafting tools up here on this tool palette. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to click on drafting, and then we're going to click on line. And when we do that, you will notice that down here on the bottom of the screen on the command bar, you will see that it's asking us to specify our first point. And as I showed you last video, you could just click randomly in places, okay, and get lines, but we don't want that. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of the line tool. I'm going to hit Command Z to get out, to go back a step from drawing that line. So I'm going to click line again. Now, one thing I want you to know about this grid and I don't know if you'll be able to see it as well as I can see it, but down here on the bottom right, as I move, you will see the X and the Y values, the absolute coordinates, showing up as I move the cursor around. All right. Something for you to know as I zoom in here on the grid is that these squares, you might think of these little tiny grid lines as one, but the way the program is set up currently is so that they are considered half units. So if I were going to start here and go to here, that's only 0.5, and same thing going up and down. Okay, so don't get confused and think that each square is 1 by 1. The larger, darker lines are groups of 5 of those. So if you want to think of it that way, 5 half units is like 2.5. So each of these squares is like 2.5. You can change that if you want to, but for this project, we're not going to bother. Okay, so in the status bar down here, sorry, not the status bar, the command line, it still wants our first point. So I'm just going to type in, just to show you, 1. And I can type anywhere, comma, 1, and it will show up down here. Now for the computer to understand that we're ready for it to do it, we have to tap the enter button or the return button on your keyboard, and you will see that I have a beginning of a line. I have 1 point. Now it's going to ask me to specify the next point. So I'm going to just type in 2, 2 for the heck of it and hit enter. Okay, and I could keep going. 5, 20, you know, if I want to get crazy. And go way up there. I can also type in negative numbers like -1, -3. Okay, and that will go down here. I'll have to zoom out to see that. Okay, so if I make a mistake doing one part of this line, like that, maybe I didn't want this one to go all the way down there, you will see in the command line there's a thing that I can choose close or undo. All right, so I'm going to tap U for undo and hit enter. Okay, and that will undo just one piece of the line. Because if I did Command Z, just to show you, well, while you're in the line tool, that works. But when you're outside of the line tool, if I just make a whole bunch of lines, okay, maybe I just didn't want this last piece. If I do Command Z, it will get rid of the entire set of lines. Okay, so we're just kind of drawing here to get used to the program, but I want you to click on the line tool, and I want you to do like 2 lines, and it doesn't really matter where they go as long as they're not super close to each other. And then I'm going to show you what this close command does in the line in the command bar on the bottom. If you type C for close and hit enter, the program will close up your lines like a shape, and it will go back to the point you started this line command, just so you know. Okay, so if I started a new line set over here, if I hit close, it's not going to bounce over here. It's going to close up here. So I do C, enter. Okay, so I'm just going to clear my screen from all of those things. Okay, and now what you're going to do is you will receive from me, probably in iTunes U, it's probably attached to this assignment, a list of coordinates in order. And those coordinates allow you, if you type them in correctly, allow you to create an M and a V. They are a block letter M and a V. And let me see if I can find them on my computer, and I'll show you. There's an M and a V. And here's the handout. So there's a letter A, that's the first coordinate you put in, 1, 1, a B, 1, 1, 1, 0, sorry for the A, but you'll get the picture. And so you will end up with this M. You do not have to label all of the A's, B's, C's, D's. Don't worry about that. When you get to the end, you'll hit C to close the shape up, and you should end up with this block letter M that looks like this. Okay. Now, that's what you'll do for a 3. I'm going to show you what to do for the 4 really quickly. The 4, in my class, the 3 is doing the directions to create the same drawing that I have given you. But for the 4, in this case, in most cases, you're going to have to show me you can apply those skills that you learned in a new way without step-by-step directions. The only hint I'll give you for the 4 is this. So you'll have an M, and I'm just going to, this is not the M you're going to be drawing, but I'm just doing one super fast just so I can show you. Okay, so let's say you have the M done over here. Okay, for the 4, you're going to design your own V. So some suggestions for that. You're going to have to design the V and then you're going to give me a written list of coordinates on a piece of paper that if I type them in, I will get your same V. So if you look as you're going around the grid, you will see that those coordinates are pretty specific. Like right now I'm at 36.5167. Well, that's on the X, and then negative 2.7451. You don't want to have to write those crazy decimal points out. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. If you go down to the status bar and turn on this one here called snap mode, what this will do, and you'll only see it when you're using the line tool, what this will do, sorry for all the zooming there, when you turn on the line tool and the snap mode is on, you'll see that as you move around the grid, if you look at your absolute coordinates, you will see that they will jump to zeros and 0.5. So that will make it much easier. So what I would do is I would kind of draw your V. Okay, your V should be roughly the same size as your M. And it does need to be a block letter V. Okay, it doesn't have to look like mine, but it should also be even. And I don't even know if mine's even. Yeah, mine's a little lopsided, so that doesn't quite work. Okay, so I would draw it first in the program, and then if you need the coordinates back, you can click the line tool like you're going to draw it again and trace over it again. And what you're going to do is down here on the status bar, there's a function called Object Snap, and what Object Snap does is Object Snap lets you hover over a point of an object you've created and start from that object, but we're going to use that to read the coordinates over there. So this is 18 x 9y, okay, and you can see that way down in this corner way over here. Okay, so that's what I would use to do your V, and you'll give me that on a piece of paper. Don't forget to stamp your work up here with the annotation tool and the A button. Okay, and just writing your name on here. Okay, and make sure it's nice and big so that we can see it, because as you know, they get pretty small. All right, good luck, and ask me if you have any questions.